Excelling in college football at a high level on the rough, rugged defensive line and having an opportunity in the NFL reveals the toughness of this warrior, transitioning from the gridiron to the octagon cage, and he is respected in the MMA community. Now fighting for Bellator, he is a former UFC gladiator preparing for a co-main event heavyweight battle at Bellator 243 on Friday, August 7th. Friday, August 7th. Let me correct that. Thank you, South Florida resident Matt Mitrione. How are things going, Matt? What can you tell us about the big fight coming up on Friday, August 7th?
What's up, brother? I guess it'll be tough. It's a good fight. Tim Johnson's a tough dude. He just knocked out a major up in summer for his last fight, so he's primed up and ready to go. I think it'll be a great showdown.
What do you think about the last fight you had, am I right, was back in August of 2019?
Yeah, man, that was a bit of a debacle.
But what can you tell us since then? Because it's been, with this pandemic and everything else going on, it's been a while then since you fought. So just has everything been different? Has the training been different? How do you feel?
I feel great, man. And no, training hasn't been any different at all. It was, I lost fair and square. Dude is a tough guy, took quite a beating, and just kind of capitalized on me getting frustrated. So, but we didn't have to change anything really. I'm always a variable. I did a pretty good job in the first, and then through the second round, like I said, I just got caught on me getting frustrated and losing focus. But I think it was more just the moment versus any kind of training or anything else. And I've got some of the best coaches in the world, and I've got some pretty significant ability compared to most other heavyweights. So I feel like I'm prepared. As long as I do what I'm supposed to do and I listen to my training partners and coaches, I think I'm pretty solid.
Matt, are you in Connecticut right now?
I am. Beautiful Connecticut.
How do you feel about the measures and steps that Bellator has taken? Have you already been tested? Did you test before you went up? How has that process been going?
Yeah, I tested before we came up, and then we got tested this morning. We landed about, I got to the hotel about 7:30, 7:45 last night. Went straight to our room. Came down this morning at 7:25. Took a nasal swab. They sent it out, and we'll figure out, assuming that I passed that, then the rest of it is a pretty tight quarantine, but not nearly as tight as it is now. We've been room-bound for going on about, 17 hours, something like that now.
What has it been like for you during this pandemic?
Honestly, we keep a very small circle, so it's been training as usual. It's, I wasn't able to get my kids for a little while because I'm training with different people, so we just wanted to make sure that everything was as clean or as kosher as possible. And like the last 10 days or so, my wife was even like, hey, look, let's not take a chance, even though we're around each other, let's make sure we're as safe as possible here. So like, it's been a bit of a drag, but it's been as safe as it could possibly be for us.
Bellator 243, Friday, August 7th, and it will be on Paramount Network and DAZN from the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut. And Matt will be in the co-main event. He'll be going up in a heavyweight battle against Timothy Johnson. And that broadcast will start live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Matt, are you training with Sanford MMA and Combat Club?
Yeah, well, I train with Sanford MMA mostly, but I have a very good relationship with Rodney and with Combat Club. So we bounce back and forth, but primarily with Sanford.
What has that been like? Because that seems like a really cool sort of new entity going from Hard Knocks 365, with mostly the same team, to Sanford MMA. And what's Sanford MMA? Sanford and their technology and what they're representing and being a part of all that. It really is cool. I was talking to another fighter about that.
Yeah, dude. Sanford is a really impressive place. It's well put together. We have a lot of cross-training. We have a lot of guys in the NFL that come over, train with us, learn about grappling or wrestling or body control, learn about striking, stuff like that. And when we go back over to Hard Knocks, we have Tony Villani and his XPE crew, and so many people over there working and training at the same time. Like we were in the midst of training with as many NFL guys and all pro guys you can imagine. So it's nice. It's a very it's a great crossover for me, especially because I'm so used to football and NFL locker rooms that this is just a continuation of the sort. We've just been able to go to MMA, and then I hold pads for players, and I watch them do pad pushing drills or catching drills or acceleration drills. It's just it's been a really nice experience. I love South Florida for all that.
Was sparring and training a little bit different? I know you touched on it earlier because of the pandemic.
Yeah, a little bit, but like it wasn't bad at all. We stayed up in Delray this time, stayed at the courtyard up there, and just really had a really solid time, man. It was nice to kind of get away, to go straight to a room. We bought a hot place we could cook in, and just and cooked for ourselves and trained twice a day and took it easy. I mean by my wife, like my wife and I stayed in there and hung out. And it was cool. It was almost like a honeymoon where you just go do some work, focus on something else, and then you come back in and spend a lot of time. But it was cool, man. It was a good experience, and especially for a fighter, it's great to be able to limit distractions. And I think anybody who's familiar with South Florida, it's not all the way south in Miami or Lauderdale, knows that Delray is a pretty good place to go and be social at. So it was nice to be able to disappear into the gym, but at the same time not be so overwhelmed by the gym that you get burnt out. Because we go up to Delray, we can walk around, we can hang out, do some things, but still keep a focus on the career. So it was nice, man. It was really solid. And we spent 5 weeks down there. I mean, it was really pretty good.
Matt, where do you call home then? What are you, a Broward, Palm Beach guy? Where would home be for you?
You know, I split time between Indiana and down in Boca. And most of the time in Boca, I'm right off of Palmetto Parkway. So it's been, you know, it's kind of a 6 months in a day type of time. But if we could, I have 3 kids that live up in Indiana. But if we could, we would move to Florida, like a full-time basis. But as of right now, it's primarily training and making sure I can stay focused.
What is the drive and determination and the parts of being a fighter? Obviously, it's a profession. Obviously, it's a business too, and you have to make a living. But going from the NFL to MMA, what was that transition like? And just, you got out there, man. You were doing your thing.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. I've been in this game a whole lot longer than I ever expected to be, and it's treated us well. It's given me a good life, and I appreciate it. I try to do my best to try to respect the sport and give the fan base the show and the fights that they're looking for. No, obviously you're going to win, you're going to lose, but if you win 2 out of 3, you're doing all right, and I think I'm on that path now. And obviously, like, I'm 42, I'm no spring chicken, but I feel like my body's handled my life and the lives that I put it through pretty well. So we'll see what happens with it, but I'm pretty happy with how it's going so far.
And I know we talked a little earlier about the last fight, but you've had many big fights and many big wins during your career. How do you look at this fight as far as, gee, I got to get out there and win? It's not just about showing. I know you always want to win, but this is so important for me because of how many fights I've had, because of how old I am. I need to get this win.
You know, honestly, I'll be honest, I don't ever think like that. I think I'm an entertainer. I get out there and I put on a show. I'm a personality. I have an exciting fighting style, and I'm aggressive. So I don't ever think about I have to get this win because I don't put pressure on myself like that. I believe I'm going to win all the time. Now, I think that I've been bested a couple different times. I've never had my ass whooped except for Ryan Bader, who just absolutely mollywopped me because I'm not much of a wrestler. But other than that, I think I've always been highly competitive, and I think that I'm respected for that.
What has Bellator meant to you?
Bellator has meant a lot more freedom. I think it's important to the market and the industry that Bellator is here. I think it gives people the viable opportunity to test out free agency. I think it's been a very unique experience being over here. I think there's a lot of communication in some parts. It's a little bit different than the UFC and others, but I think it's a growing process. And I think that I started my career in the UFC. The first fight I ever had was in the UFC. So I didn't know anything different until I came over here and I saw a different side of things. And it's been great. It's been great for business, and it's been great for me to have a realization that everybody has their 3 degrees of separation.
Bellator 243, Friday, August 7th, and it will be on Paramount and also DAZN, live 10 p.m. You could see Matt in the co-main event, heavyweight battle, and it's interesting looking at some of your fights from the past, and Fedor obviously sticks out, a Bellator fight, a big win over him. What was that whole experience like, him coming over from Russia and having this battle? Because not only was it a fight, but you had the USA, Russia competitiveness going into that one.
Yeah, man. It was interesting. It was a very interesting dynamic. But Fedor is really cool, man. He's a great dude. He's very humble. And so it made it very simple for us to just get in there and fight. There was no political undertones between the two of us. And it was nice, man. It was a good experience. I'm glad I won. He's incredibly dangerous. Even though the fight didn't last very long, I can tell you that he is easily the most dangerous person I've fought before.
For this fight coming up Friday, August 7th, Bellator 243, who did you bring with you, part of your team?
I brought my best good buddy and training partner, Ed Jones, and then Coach Henry and Coach Greg from Sanford.
What has Henry meant to you? Henry's like the king of Sanford MMA.
Yeah, he is, actually. He is. Henry Hoops is the king of MMA, in my opinion. He's a great dude. You know what's awesome about Coach is that he has such a humble perspective when it comes down to MMA. He's accomplished so much in kickboxing, and he's opened himself to the sport of MMA now, where he's so pliable and malleable as far as how he coaches and how he modifies things. And he's such a good coach, man. He's a great dude, and he's one of my best friends. He's an awesome, awesome dude.
Matt, did you have a favorite football? Were the Bears your favorite football team growing up?
They were, man. They were, absolutely.
Did you have a favorite player back then?
It was Walter.
Oh, sweetness. Walter Payton, wow. One of the greatest in all. What was it like playing football and excel at such a high level like that?
You want to know something crazy about Walter Payton? I doubt you guys ever heard the story, but maybe you have, since it's South Florida and you guys had Jarrett. But did you guys ever hear the story about Walter Payton's Super Bowl ring being found in a couch?
What?
You never heard the story?
No.
All right, so first of all, if you know Jarrett will validate.
Right, and he went to University of Miami, of course.
Yeah, so if you ever talk to him, he can validate the story. So there's this dude that went to Purdue University. He was a student from the Chicagoland area, went to a garage sale, bought a couch, and went back to Purdue with the couch, had it for about 2 or 3 years, and lost the remote. Couldn't find it, took the entire couch apart. By the time he got inside the couch, reached under, felt something, pulled it out. It was Walter Payton's Super Bowl ring. Total legit, real Walter Payton Super Bowl ring. Took it to a jeweler. They were like, this ring is absolutely legit, blah, 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 blah. So dude calls up the Bears, tells them that he has Walter Payton's ring, and he wants to talk to Walter directly. So they call Walter. He says he lost it, doesn't know where it's at, thinks he has it, searches around, can't find it, calls the dude, right? Walter calls the dude. And he's like, okay, well, he's like, you have my ring. He's like, so how much do you want for it? And the kid says to Walter Payton, sir, I don't want any money from you. All I want to do is take you to dinner, and I buy. That's it. And so they had dinner and with the family, and the family is still friends with the dude to this day.
That is such a cool story, Matt. It's just, I'm thinking you would have probably done the same thing.
Oh, it's been incredible. I had lunch with him one time. That's one of my highlights of my sporting life.
That is so cool. It's just so cool. It's interesting with entertainers and athletes and some of the different personalities and other people that you get to meet during that time. It's interesting, too, because I read that you, at Purdue, you were, is this right, you were roommates with Drew Brees?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, was.
What was Drew like? We know him as a quarterback, and he seems such like a down-to-earth, humble guy as well. What was he like, too, during the college days?
He's exactly the way he is now. He hasn't changed at all. You know, he's so dedicated, and he's so intelligent. Like, he is a student of the game on every level. And he's so competitive. I've never met anybody like him to be at Purdue. He filled in for a guy named Jim Coletto. So Tiller came in late, so he got a late start on recruiting, so he needed to get as many bodies as he could as soon as he could. So they only took Drew because he was an available body. That's it. We had a guy named Jimmy Mitchell out of St. Louis, another guy named Ben Smith out of Nebraska, that were ranked ahead of Drew in our recruiting class.
That is such an amazing story, too, because you hear so much about Tom Brady. Although he starred, when he came out of college in the NFL, he was drafted 5th, 6th round, and then made in the NFL. But it's interesting to hear some of the stories of the college players and what happened with them. I mean, I didn't know that Drew was, like, not really touted to be a starter, and then look what the heck the guy went on and did and be able to Purdue in the NFL. It's just amazing. It's interesting, too, because you're a defensive lineman, and I would think, I don't know, I've never fought, I've never been in the knockdown of the cage, so I'll ask you, obviously, do you think it's a easier transition, not that it's always easy, for a defensive lineman to make a transition than any other position in football to MMA? Is that a tougher question or a loaded question?
No, it's not. It's just there are so many very athletic positions. We were training with Travis Kelce, right? And Kelce is extremely capable because he's got great hips and he's long and he's aggressive. Most of the NFL guys we work with do not have great hip rotation, and they're very stiff in their shoulders. So, as a result, you don't. It's hard to see what position would be better than others. It's more like what individuals. Like I would imagine that a corner or a rush end, right, or an outside linebacker would have an advantage because they have to turn their hips so much and they have to have so much rotational flexibility. But you don't necessarily see that as often. Like you more see individuals versus positions. So I can't really give you a very qualified answer for that.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned about the outside linebacker because I never really thought of that, and that is a very good point with that. Lastly, on that part of it, do you think Drew Brees could have made it in MMA?
No, brother, he doesn't have the mind for it. No, but that's just not who he is, man.
And then I wanted to also touch a little bit about the Chicago Cubs. Were you a big Cubs fan?
Oh, I'm definitely a Cubbies fan. My best good buddy Ed is a Sox fan, which means he just doesn't know what he's talking about. But I do. I love the Cubbies. My wife loves the Cubbies. Two of my 3 kids love the Cubbies. So we are definitely. Actually, my wife doesn't love the Cubbies. She loves the Cardinals. But I'm really doing my very best to convert her to a Cubs fan.
And hey, I know you're spending time in between then, but have you met Anthony Rizzo? He's a South Florida resident.
I've never have, man. I would love to meet him though. I'd love to buy him a beer and chop it up with him a little bit. Maybe do a little bit of work with him. I like Rizzo. Rizzo's a great dude, man. I've heard a lot about him, but I've just never met him before.
Yeah, he's really cool. Does a lot of charity work too. Really a interesting story too, what he's overcome physically. So it's really a cool story. A couple more questions, Matt. We'll get you out of here. And thank you so much for the time on this. Getting ready for Bellator 243, August 7th, 10 p.m. live on Paramount and also DAZN. And Matt's in the co-main event. Heavyweight, you got to watch him. Man, he brings it. It'll be very interesting, a good fight. Matt, I'm wondering about this. Was it tough hanging up the NFL cleats?
No, it wasn't because the NFL was done with me. I wasn't done with the NFL. So whenever the door shuts, it shuts for good, but there's nothing you can do about it if they don't want you anymore.
And another interesting thing, are you doing any training, coaching of others, and is that something that interests you?
I work a lot with Purdue University. I live at Purdue. So I work a lot with Purdue with hand flexibility, with hand fighting, hip rotation, wall work. We do a lot of MMA drills with O linemen, D linemen, wide receivers, corners, safeties. I mean, we work O linemen, so we work quite a bit with them. Obviously now is not the case, but I am very involved with Purdue and being involved with helping other football players and athletes.
It's interesting, too, because you talked a little bit about entertainment, and we were talking about the wins and the losses. And obviously, like you said, you want to go out there to win, but your focus is also on the show and entertaining and doing those qualities, those entities. And I wonder, because pro wrestlers and MMA fighters, you've seen the crossover between them, whether it be King Mo, Ronda Rousey, Josh Barnett, Bobby Lashley, Lesnar, Brock Lesnar, and even back in the day, Matt, Dan the Beast Severn and Ken Shamrock, and King Mo has been doing it nowadays as well. I'm just curious from your take, were you ever a pro wrestling fan, and is that something that you ever thought about doing?
No, man. Pro wrestling is not really my jam. It's never been my thing. And with how much they had to travel and get and leave their families, it's just a past out of my life. But I know a lot of people that like it. It's just never been my thing.
And Matt, were you involved, I hope I got this right, were you involved in an anti-bullying program?
I was, brother. Yes, I was.
And real quick, what was that all about? And how important was it to do something like that?
It's always important, man. I like everybody, right? I was bullied. A lot of people have been bullied. So it was nice to be able to get out and say, hey, look, man, this is what's going on. And everybody's been through it. You guys aren't alone. And this is how we handle that situation.
And lastly, I'll end it with this part of it, and then we can take us out with Bellator 243. Matt, are you a big chicken wing fan, and do you have a chicken wing spot in South Florida?
Brother, I was sponsored by Wingstop for a very long time, and I absolutely love Wingstop, but if I'm going to be totally honest with you, I love Brews Room's Triple Threat.
Yes! And by the way, former Miami Dolphin Bob Brzezinski, so you're keeping the NFL ties as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Brews Room Triple Threat. I think they're fantastic.
That's awesome. All right, so Matt, if you can, please take us out about Bellator 243 and what you want to tell fans and everyone out there about the event on Friday, August 7th.
Look, man, pay attention to it. It's on the Paramount Network. It's going to be a hell of a scrap. There's a bunch of really good fighters. The main event is incredible. Michael Chandler versus Benson Henderson. Both really good friends of mine. Benson's been a great friend of mine for a long time. And Michael Chandler is one of my training partners. I've known him for a long time as well. They're great fighters. The first one was a barn burner. It was a hell of a scrap. Then I'm the co-main event. So stick around to watch us get down and scrap, brother. It's going to be a heck of a card. And we got a young buck from Florida as well. He trains with us. I just totally blanked on his name. The Hungarian cat. I can't remember his name. I totally drew a blank right now. But
is he on the prelims, do you know, or if he's on the main card?
I believe he's a prelim. Adam Boric. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Adam Boric.
All right, very good. Then we'll check him out. We'll look for him as well. I also know Valerie Loureda is on the prelims, another South Florida. Chandler was training at Sanford MMA in the main event guy. We got a lot of South Florida representation in this big event, Bellator 243.
You're right, brother.
All right, Big Matt, thank you so much and take care.